I'm sorry. There appears to have been some sort of confusion. Apparently, I'm reviewing an episode of Ed, Edd n Eddy rather than an episode of the Powerpuff Girls.
So the girls are growing a tomato garden for some vegetable contest or some shit.
But nobody cares. We already know they're gonna screw it up.
Okay, to be fair, it only takes like 45 seconds for them to get to the point.
So it's not like I feel like they dragged it out. There's a gag where Buttercup wants to smash all the losing tomatoes. There's a gag where Bubbles dumps out a cereal box. Whatever.
So right, they done fucked it.
And I want to go ahead and address the running gag they start here with blaming Bubbles for everything. It's not funny. It was never going to be funny. And it's incredibly out of character for Blossom to participate in it at all, even for this series.
Anyway, they use a bunch of fertilizers that they aren't supposed to mix,
Which I'm sure will have no negative repercussions.
and they have the giant tomato plants the next day.
In case you haven't figured it out by now, this is another one of those cookie cutter sitcom type plots. And I'd like to note that I normally give the show credit when they adapt it into something that's more unique that works with the Powerpuff Girls. And they certainly do. They do that here. The problem is that the way that they adapt it is not good.
So allow me to introduce Tabitha, a tomato worm that eats all the fucking tomatoes.
And she's basically the combination of Eugene and Harold from Hey Arnold, except for the fact that she has none of the traits that make those characters interesting. Okay, you know how many people find Donnie annoying? Right? I actually kind of like Donnie, alright? Yeah, he's kind of a goofball and shit like that. But you know what? I like him. And if you don't, that's fine. This motherfucker, on the other hand,
Oh, by the way, she likes to be called Eddie.
for the sole purpose of naming this episode, there's no reason to call her Eddie. Okay, I don't really like bringing up other people's reviews when I do this at all, but Shadow Streak, he's been reviewing every episode of the show too, and he's got a particular hatred for Jared Shapiro, and that's fine. We have slightly different opinions of Jared Shapiro. I feel like he's not fleshed out enough, and that's part of the reason that Shadow Streak hates him. It's fine. It's cool. But in terms of actual hatred, this is my Jared Shapiro.
Anyway, the girls head to Veggie Fest with their last tomato and the worm tags along.
And small side note, I don't think that's actually the last tomato. They were in this one row the entire time, and I can see what appears to be fully intact tomatoes in the background. Granted, there's like part of it that's cut off, so maybe that's the part that got eaten, but it seems really fucking convenient if that's the case. Oh, and if you thought I wasn't bitching about this episode enough,
The Veggie Fest was 2 days away when the girls used the fertilizer.
and after what amount of time did the events that we're seeing here occur, including them going to Veggie Fest? Go fuck yourselves!
Anyway, they get to Veggie Fest.
Last one in is a rotten egg. Sorry, maybe first one in.
I hate.
Multiple incredibly unfunny veggie jokes later, Eddie gets nervous and accidentally takes a bite of the tomato.
Because, of course, this is probably not going to be a very long review, because most of the plot points are, this is predictable as fuck. And, I'm kind of running out of different ways to say that by this point.
Bubbles expresses my precise feelings about this character before Mojo Jojo shows up with an onion monster.
And this is the best part of the episode. Mostly because Eddie's not here, but, it even manages to be tolerable when Eddie comes back into the picture, which is quite an achievement.
The biggest reason that this is the best part of the episode is because Mojo's motivations make sense.
Even though Mojo's, an evil mastermind bent on taking over the world and or destroying the girls, he doesn't really need that much logic behind his actions, but I think it's nice that they included this to, at the very least, explain why he went with this type of monster in particular, and explain why he's going this particular route other than just, plot convenience.
Onions are an herb?
No, they're not! Herbs are only added to food for flavor, not substance. Onions are added to food for both flavor and substance. Now, if we were talking about green onions, you would be correct. But that's not a green onion monster. Now, is it, Little Miss Local Flora and Fauna?
Right, so the girls start losing to the power of straight up stink, and Eddie saves the day by eating the goddamn onion.
You know how last episode I was talking about how Professor resolving the conflict made sense because it wasn't because of the girls' incompetence? Yeah. This is the polar opposite.
I wouldn't really feel this way if not for the fact that the girls are apparently immune to the stench when using lantern powers.
But, yeah, they totally showed them completely unaffected while using their lantern powers. I mean, maybe if they at the very least needed to, I don't know, hold their nose or something, even while using the lantern powers.
And even then, I'm pretty sure Buttercup can do better than a grappling hook.
Considering the fact that, we previously saw a fighter jet and a tank.
So, right, the girls apologize to Eddie for being jerks.
And one of my main problems with this is that Eddie outright admits that the girl's actions made her a better person. And yeah, they weren't the nicest people about it. But the thing is, neither was Eddie. I mean, I would give them credit for a more complex moral being presented about, even if someone's a jerk to you, that doesn't give you the right to be a jerk back. If not for that running gag with Bubbles. Yeah, so they kind of fucked that with me.
Okay, so Eddie's a butterfly now. I hope I never see her again.
I fucking hated this episode. I normally give credit to this show when they adapt what would normally be a cookie cutter plot in order to make it fit better within the mold that this show goes for. But the problem here, and yeah, you can say this is kind of me being a little bit biased if you want, but the problem here is the character they chose to center around being unfucking bearable. And you know what? It'd be fine, except for the fact that the girls really just feel like background extras. There are a couple of episodes that are somewhat like that, where the girls sort of move to the background in a sense. It's almost like they're guesting in somebody else's show, And again, it really doesn't help that the character that the episode is actually centered around is such a fucking pain. Worst episode of the series? Maybe. I'm gonna go with a maybe.